We organize our lives every single day, but have you ever stopped to think about how we organize our work? Well, that very question has driven humanity for centuries, and it's created this incredible story that stretches all the way from the age of the pyramids to, you guessed it, the age of pixels. Let's get into it.
So here's a fun one for you. What could the Great Pyramids of Giza possibly have in common with your back-to-back Zoom meetings? I know. One is this mind-blowing feat of ancient engineering, and the other, well, it's more of a modern feat of endurance, right? But believe it or not, there is a very real, very powerful thread that connects them.
And that's the connection. At their absolute core, both depend on mastering one of our oldest, most fundamental challenges as a species: organizing work. How do you get a group of people, with a bunch of resources, to achieve a common goal? That's the puzzle we've literally been trying to solve for thousands of years. Okay, so before we go any further, what do we actually mean when we say organizing? Let's just quickly break down this core concept. At its heart, organizing is really just a formal system for grouping people and all their different activities together to get something specific done. Whether you're talking about a huge company or a small startup, it's about creating a structure so that everyone's individual efforts actually add up to achieving the big picture objective. And organizing isn't just one single thing. It's more like a toolkit with a few core concepts. You've got structure, that's all about how you group people. Then there's centralization, which is about who gets to make the big decisions. Span of control, that just determines how many people a single manager is responsible for. And staffing, well, that one's pretty obvious. It's about getting the right people into the right jobs in the first place. Now, this need to organize work really, truly exploded during the Industrial Revolution. It was an era that was completely obsessed with one thing: getting the absolute most out of every single resource. And that included human labor. This was the great quest for maximum efficiency. This whole idea didn't just appear overnight, of course. It started way back in the 18th century with Adam Smith talking about the division of labor. Then fast forward to 1832, and you have Charles Babbage suggesting we should break jobs down into their basic parts and figure out how much each one costs. But the whole thing really came to a head in the early 20th century thanks to a guy named Frederick W. Taylor and his revolutionary and pretty controversial idea, scientific management. And this quote from Taylor himself, it just says it all, doesn't it? He wanted to completely get rid of any old-fashioned guesswork or rules of thumb. His goal was to develop a science for every single part of a job, to find the one single best way to do it, and then train every worker to follow that one method perfectly, no exceptions. To really see how powerful this was in practice, you have to look at the famous bricklayer study done by Frank Gilbreth. So he watched these guys and saw they were making 18 distinct motions just to lay one brick. But by making some really simple changes, like giving them better scaffolds and arranging the bricks just right so they were easy to grab, he cut those motions all the way down to just 5. And the result? It was incredible. Productivity nearly tripled, soaring from 120 bricks an hour to 350. I mean, this obsession with efficiency got so detailed that Gilbreth even invented a name for the tiniest unit of movement, like grasping something or positioning it. He called it a Thurblig. And here's a fun little bit of trivia for you. Thurblig is just his last name, Gilbreth, spelled backwards. But you can probably guess that treating people like they're just machines has some serious limits. A pushback was definitely coming. A whole new perspective started to emerge, one that shifted the focus away from the stopwatch and onto the human mind. The central question became this: are people really just cogs in some vast industrial machine? Or is there something more going on here? Is there a human factor that all these efficiency experts were completely missing? The answer came from this landmark series of experiments called the Hawthorne studies. Now, the researchers went in thinking they'd find that simple things like better lighting would boost productivity. But what they discovered was way more profound. They found that people act as a group, that social pressure from your peers can be more powerful than your own self-interest, that money isn't the only thing that motivates people, and that having a good supervisor, well, that matters a lot. Elton Mayo, who was a key researcher on this project, basically saw the future. He predicted that one day managers would have to wake up and realize that people are social creatures, not just economic ones. And just like that, the human relations school of thought was born.
So if people aren't machines, and if social stuff is so critical, how in the world should we organize work? Well, this led to a whole new approach. Instead of trying to fit the person to the job, maybe, just maybe, we should be designing the job to fit the person. And this is the core idea behind a field called ergonomics, or human engineering. The whole philosophy is actually pretty simple. Let machines do what they do best. Things like super fast computation, applying force, and doing the same thing over and over with precision. And let humans do what we do best, using our judgment, improvising when things go wrong, and learning from experience.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. It leads to really practical principles you probably recognize from your own life. Making sure your chair has good back support, avoiding awkward, twisted positions, making sure your tools are all within easy reach. These are all ergonomic ideas designed to make work safer and more comfortable by simply respecting the limits of the human body. Okay, so we've journeyed from a purely mechanical view of work to a much more human-centered one. But the story doesn't stop there. In the late 20th century, a brand new force emerged that would, once again, completely revolutionize how we organize everything: information technology.
And just like that, work was no longer tied to a physical building. Technology gave us this whole new vocabulary of work we all know today: teleworking, hot desking, virtual organizations, and of course, e-commerce. The office could now be literally anywhere you could get a signal.
We often use two terms here interchangeably, but there's a small difference. Teleworking usually means working from a fixed butt, like your house. But telecommuting, that's even more flexible. That's the true mobile office, working from your car, a hotel, a coffee shop, you name it.
And if you want to see just how unbelievably powerful this new model is, you don't have to look any farther than Amazon. It started as a virtual bookstore, no physical stores at all, and used IT and logistics to become the biggest bookseller on the entire planet, completely rewriting the rules for how an entire industry works.
So there you have it. From the brute force coordination it took to build the pyramids, to the hyper-efficient precision of the assembly line. From the human-centered designs of ergonomics, all the way to today's borderless digital networks, the quest to figure out the best way to organize work never, ever stops evolving. Which, of course, leaves us with one final and very important question: what's next?